The Valari had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. Their empire stretched across 17 star systems, and no species had ever stood against them. Their plasma weapons could melt entire moons. Their shields could stop any energy beam. They believed themselves to be the greatest power in the galaxy, and for a very long time. They were right. High. Commander Torvax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Burning Light. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 eyes that glowed softly in the dim light. Around him, hundreds of officers worked at their stations, monitoring the fleet of 400 warships that followed behind. "Commander," said one of his officers, "we have detected radio signals from the third planet of this system, a primitive species. They call themselves humans." Torvax turned his head slowly. "Radio signals. How quaint." Most species discovered faster communication methods within a few centuries of achieving space travel. These humans were clearly very young. "Show me," he commanded. The main screen flickered to life. Images of Earth appeared: blue oceans, green forests, white clouds. Then came images of the humans themselves. Soft creatures. No natural weapons. No thick skin or sharp claws. They looked weak and fragile. "They have achieved basic space travel," the officer continued. "They have stations orbiting their planet and have sent explorers to nearby worlds. But their technology is—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Primitive." Torvax felt something like amusement. Another easy conquest. The Valari had done this many times before. They would arrive, demonstrate their power, and the primitive species would surrender. Those who refused were simply destroyed. "Send them a message," Torvax ordered. "Inform them that the Valari Dominion claims this system. They will surrender immediately or face destruction." The message was sent. The Valari fleet continued its approach toward the inner planets far away on Earth. Admiral Park. Dahyun received the alien transmission in the command center of the United Earth Fleet. He was 57 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face that had seen many difficult days. He had spent his entire career preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Now it had arrived. The alien message played on the large screen before him. Torvax's image appeared, speaking in a language that Earth computers quickly translated. "Primitive beings of the third planet. You are now subjects of a Valari Dominion. You will surrender your world, your resources, and your people. Resistance is not possible. We have destroyed civilizations far greater than yours. You have 30 of your planetary rotations to comply. This is your only warning." The message ended. Silence filled the room. Doyun looked around at his officers. Some were afraid. Others were angry. All of them were waiting for him to speak. "Send them our response," he said calmly. "Show them what we have." Lieutenant Yoonjisu nodded and began working at her station. She was young, only 32, but she was the best tactical analyst in the fleet. Her mind worked like a computer, always calculating, always planning. Earth's response included video footage of human military technology. Fighter jets screaming across the sky. Tanks rolling through desert sand. Missiles launching from submarines. Soldiers firing rifles on training grounds. And finally, the pride of Earth's space fleet, their warships, armed with railguns and nuclear missiles. The transmission was sent. Then they waited. The Valari response came quickly. At first, Dohyun did not understand what he was seeing. Torvax appeared on screen again, but his body was shaking. His 4 eyes were squeezed shut. Strange sounds came from his mouth. "Is he ill?" asked one of the officers. Jisoo shook her head slowly. "No, sir. I believe he is laughing." She was correct. Torvax was laughing so hard that he could barely speak. When he finally controlled himself, his voice dripped with mockery. "You fight with explosions?" he said. You throw metal pieces at your enemies. Your greatest weapons use chemical reactions? He started laughing again. We command the power of stars. We can create plasma hot enough to melt any material in the universe. And you throw rocks! He leaned closer to the camera, his 4 eyes now filled with contempt. Your species is even more primitive than we thought. This will not be a conquest. It will be pest control. You now have 20 rotations to surrender. Use them wisely. The screen went dark. Duhayan stood perfectly still. Around him, he could feel the fear spreading among his officers. The aliens had technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. Their weapons seemed like magic compared to Earth's simple projectiles and explosives. But Do-Yoon was not afraid. He was thinking, "Lieutenant Yoon," he said quietly, "what do we know about their weapons?" Jizoo pulled up her analysis on the main screen. Their weapons are plasma-based, sir. Superheated matter contained and directed by magnetic fields. Extremely powerful. Their shields work on similar principles. They create energy barriers designed to absorb and redirect heat and radiation. Designed to stop energy weapons, Do-Yoon said slowly. Yes, sir. Energy weapons, lasers, plasma bolts. Anything that works by transferring heat or radiation. Do-Yoon turned to face her. And kinetic weapons? Physical projectiles? Jizoo paused. Her eyes widened slightly as she understood what he was asking. Their shields are designed to stop energy, sir. Not matter. A physical projectile moving fast enough might. She trailed off, running calculations in her head. They've never needed to stop bullets. Every advanced species uses energy weapons. They probably never even considered the possibility. Dr. Kim Yoonji stepped forward. She was the head of weapons development, a brilliant scientist who had spent her career being told that her work would never matter. Space warfare would be fought with lasers and particle beams, everyone said. Her kinetic weapons were relics of a primitive past. Now she smiled grimly. Our railguns can accelerate a tungsten rod to 50 kilometers per second, she said. At that speed, the kinetic energy alone is devastating. It doesn't need to explode. It just needs to hit. And our missiles? Do-Hyun asked. Nuclear warheads. Electromagnetic pulses. Fragmentation charges. Yoonji's smile grew wider. They think we throw rocks, Admiral. They have no idea what our rocks can do. Captain Lee Taiwan commanded the destroyer Jindo. He had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. They fly in tight formations, he said. I've studied their approach patterns. No evasive maneuvers. No point defense systems that I can detect. They've never fought anyone who could threaten them, so they never learned to be careful. Dawn nodded slowly. The pieces were coming together in his mind. They're overconfident, he said. They have better technology, but they've never faced an enemy like us. They don't know how to fight someone who doesn't play by their rules. He turned to face his officers. His voice was calm but firm. We cannot match their technology. We cannot build plasma weapons or energy shields in 20 days. But we don't need to. He pointed at the screen, where the last image of Torvax's mocking face still lingered. They designed their entire military to fight enemies who use energy weapons. They never planned for an enemy stupid enough to still use bullets and bombs. He paused, letting his words sink in. They called our weapons primitive. They laughed at us. Good. Let them laugh. Let them come in their beautiful ships with their perfect shields. Expecting an easy victory. Admiral Park Dawn's eyes were hard as stone. And then let's show them what primitive really means. Across the solar system, hidden in asteroid fields and buried beneath lunar dust, thousands of railgun platforms waited in silence. Missile silos stood ready. Nuclear warheads armed themselves. The Volari thought they were coming to crush insects. They had no idea. They were walking into a trap. The Valari fleet moved through the outer solar system like a swarm of golden fireflies. Their ships were beautiful curved hulls that seemed to flow like liquid metal, engines that burned with blue plasma fire, shields that shimmered like soap bubbles in the darkness of space. 400 warships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single shot. High Commander, Torvax watched the human solar system grow larger on his view screen. He felt nothing but boredom. This conquest would be quick and simple, just like all the others. The humans would see his fleet, understand they had no chance, and surrender. If they did not surrender, his ships would burn their cities until they changed their minds. "Commander," said his second officer, a female Valari named Kessa, "we are receiving transmissions from the human fleet. They are mobilizing." Torvax made a sound of amusement. "Let them mobilize. Let them gather their little metal ships with their chemical engines. It will make the destruction more efficient if they are all in one place." Kessa hesitated. "Should we not be cautious, Commander? We know very little about these humans. What is there to know?" Torvax replied. "They have no plasma weapons, no energy shields. Their fastest ships move at a fraction of our speed. They are insects with delusions of importance." He waved one long hand dismissively. "Continue the advance. Standard conquest formation." The fleet obeyed. They always obeyed. The Valari had not lost a battle in 3,000 years. On Earth, Admiral Park Do-hyun stood in the command center of the orbital station, Baekdu. The station hung in high orbit above Korea, a massive structure of metal and glass that served as the headquarters of the United Earth Fleet. Around him, hundreds of officers worked frantically at their stations, coordinating the largest military operation in human history. "Status report," Do-hyun ordered. Lieutenant Yoon Ji-soo appeared at his side, tablet in hand. Despite the chaos around them, her voice was calm and precise. "All railgun platforms are online and hidden. We have positioned 1,200 platforms throughout the inner solar system, in the asteroid belt, on lunar surfaces, in orbital positions around Mars and Earth, all running on minimal power to avoid detection. Missiles? 32,000 nuclear warheads ready for launch. Half are positioned in orbital silos, the rest on surface installations and submarines." Jisoo scrolled through her data. "We've also deployed the EMP packages, electromagnetic pulse bombs designed to disrupt electronic systems." Do-hyun nodded. "And the fleet?" "Every ship we have is ready, sir. 47 destroyers, 12 cruisers, 3 carriers. It's not much compared to their numbers, but..." She paused. "Our job isn't to fight them directly. Our job is to survive long enough for the platforms to do their work." Captain Lee Taiwan's voice crackled over the communication system. He was aboard the Jindo, leading the first attack group. "Admiral, the Valari have passed Neptune. They're maintaining tight formation. No escort pattern. No advanced scouts. They're flying straight toward us like they're on a pleasure cruise." "They don't expect resistance," Do-hyun replied. "They've never needed to be careful before. Their arrogance will kill them," Taiwan said quietly. "Let's hope so, Captain. Hold your position and wait for my signal." Dr. Kim Yoonji arrived in the command center, looking exhausted but determined. She had not slept in 3 days, working to bring the last weapons platforms online. "Admiral, I have good news and concerning news. Start with the good. Our railgun projectiles tested even better than expected. At maximum velocity, they can punch through 30 centimeters of solid steel. Our simulations suggest the Valari hull material is actually weaker than steel against kinetic impacts. It's designed to absorb heat, not physical force." Do-hyun allowed himself a small smile. "And the concerning news? We only get one chance at surprise. Once they understand what's happening, they'll adapt. They'll spread out, increase distance between ships, maybe develop countermeasures. We need to hit them hard in the first strike. Hard enough that they can't recover. How many ships do we need to destroy? Yunji had clearly been thinking about this question. At least half. If we can destroy 200 ships in the opening attack, the psychological impact alone might break them. They've never lost that many ships in a single battle. They might panic. And if they don't panic, then we keep fighting until one side runs out of ships. Yunji's voice was flat. And we have fewer ships to lose. Do-hyun turned back to the main view screen. The Valari fleet was displayed as a cloud of red dots, moving slowly toward the inner planets. So many of them. So powerful. And humanity was preparing to fight them with weapons that ran on gunpowder and nuclear fire. Navigator Han Soman, stationed aboard the Jindo, watched her displays with growing tension. She was 28 years old, and she had joined the fleet because she loved space, the stars, the silence, the infinite possibilities. She had never imagined she would be preparing for war. "Captain," she said to Taiwan, "the Valari are scanning us. They're analyzing our ship designs." Taiwan leaned back in his command chair. "Let them look. They won't understand what they're seeing, sir. They're looking for energy weapon signatures, power cores for plasma cannons, shield generators." Taiwan smiled grimly. "They won't find any. And because they won't find any, they'll assume we're defenseless. They can't imagine a weapon that doesn't need power." Soman looked down at her console. Beneath her feet, in the belly of the Jindo, 200 kinetic missiles waited in their tubes. Each one was simple: a metal body, a chemical rocket engine, a guidance computer, and a tungsten penetrator designed to punch through anything it hit. No energy weapons. No force fields. Just metal and fire and very precise mathematics. "All hands," Taiwan announced over the ship's intercom. "The enemy fleet is 12 hours from weapons range. I want everyone to rest while they can. Eat something. Call your families if you need to. And remember why we're here." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "The aliens think we're primitive. They think our weapons are toys. They're wrong. Our ancestors survived ice ages with stone tools. They crossed oceans in wooden ships. They built civilizations from nothing but dirt and determination. And when enemies came, enemies with better weapons, better armor, better numbers, our ancestors found ways to win anyway." His voice hardened. "We are the children of survivors. Fighting against impossible odds is what humans do. It's what we've always done. And today, we're going to show the galaxy that some things never change." Across the fleet, men and women heard his words and felt something stir in their hearts. Fear was still there. It would be foolish not to be afraid. But alongside the fear was something older and stronger. Pride, defiance, the stubborn, human refusal to accept defeat. "High Commander." Torvax received updated scans of the human fleet as his ships passed the orbit of Jupiter. He studied the data with mild curiosity. 47 warships, he observed. No energy weapons detected. Their largest vessels appear to use chemical rockets. He made a sound of disbelief. "They cannot possibly think they can fight us with this." "Perhaps they hope to negotiate," Kessa suggested. "There is nothing to negotiate. They will surrender or die. Those are the only options available to them." Torvax settled deeper into his command throne, already composing the victory message he would send to the Dominion Council. Another species conquered. Another system added to the empire. Another footnote in Valari history. He did not notice the 1,000 hidden railgun platforms tracking his fleet. He did not see the missiles being armed in their silos. He did not understand that every moment of his approach was being watched, measured, and calculated by humans who had spent their entire lives preparing for exactly this moment. The Volari were walking into the kill zone, and they had no idea the trap was about to close. The Volari fleet crossed the orbit of Mars at exactly 1400 hours Earth time. Their golden ships moved in perfect formation, engines glowing, shields shimmering. From a distance, they looked like a river of stars flowing through the darkness. High Commander Torvax watched the blue dot of Earth growing larger on his view screen. Soon, very soon, another world would belong to the Dominion. He could already imagine the ceremonies, the praise from the Council, the honors that would be added to his name. "Commander," said Kessa, "we are entering the inner system. The human fleet has formed a defensive line near their planet." Torvax smiled. "A defensive line? How touching. They think they can stop us." He opened a channel to his fleet. "All ships, prepare for conquest protocol. Plasma weapons to full power. We will give the humans one final chance to surrender. If they refuse, burn their fleet and proceed to planetary bombardment." 400 ships powered up their weapons. The void of space filled with the hum of plasma generators charging, of magnetic fields coiling tight around superheated matter. The Volari had done this countless times. It was almost routine. Aboard the Baekdu, Admiral Park Do-yoon watched the enemy fleet enter optimal range. His face showed nothing. Inside, his heart was pounding. "All platforms report ready," Lieutenant Yoon Jae-soo announced. "Targeting solutions confirmed." "Awaiting your order, Admiral." Do-him looked at the tactical display. 1,200 railgun platforms had been tracking the Volari ships for hours, calculating trajectories, adjusting for solar wind and gravity. Each platform held 100 tungsten rods, each rod weighing 10 kilograms. At the velocities they would achieve, those simple pieces of metal would carry more destructive power than any bomb in human history. "The Volari are hailing us," reported the communications. "Officer, put them through." Torvax's face appeared on the main screen. His 4 eyes gleamed with contempt. "Primitive beings. You have positioned your worthless fleet in our path. This is foolish. Our weapons will vaporize your ships before you can even fire your little metal projectiles. Surrender now, and some of you may live as servants to the Dominion." Do-hyun said nothing for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet and cold. "You have made 2 mistakes, Commander. The first was assuming that because our technology is simpler, it is weaker. The second was coming here in the first place." Torvax laughed. "What can you possibly do to us? Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your ships cannot outrun ours. You have nothing." "We have surprise," Do-hyun replied. And then he gave the order. "All platforms, fire." Across the solar system, 1,200 railgun platforms opened fire simultaneously. The electromagnetic accelerators hurled their projectiles at incredible speed, 50 kilometers per second, 60, 70. The tungsten rods became invisible streaks of death, crossing thousands of kilometers in moments. The Volari never saw them coming. Their sensors were designed to detect energy signatures, plasma charges, laser beams, particle weapons. They were not designed to track small pieces of metal moving through the vacuum. The first rod struck the Volari fleet without any warning at all. And then the universe exploded. The Volari shields were masterpieces of engineering. They could absorb the heat of a sun, redirect plasma bolts, scatter laser beams into harmless light. But they had one fatal weakness that no Volari had ever considered. They could not stop physical matter. The tungsten rods passed through the shields as if they were not there. They struck the hulls at speeds that turned metal into liquid. That converted kinetic energy into heat and pressure and destruction. Ships that had survived centuries of warfare died in microseconds. 15 Volari warships were destroyed in the first 3 seconds. then 30. Then 50. On the bridge of the burning light, Torvax stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Ship after ship vanished from his fleet roster, their signals simply disappearing. What is happening? He demanded. Report. We're under attack. Kessa shouted. Physical projectiles, coming from multiple directions. We can't track them. A rod struck the ship next to the burning light. The impact punched through the vessel from front to back, releasing energy equivalent to a small nuclear bomb. The ship broke apart in a flower of fire and debris, pieces of burning metal spinning away into the void. Shields are not stopping them. Another officer screamed. They're going right through. Torvax could not understand what he was seeing. This was impossible. No species use physical projectiles in space combat. It was primitive. It was stupid. It was working. Admiral Dohyun watched the destruction unfold on his tactical display. The Valari fleet, once a perfect formation of golden ships, was now a chaos of explosions and debris. Ships were dying faster than his computers could count. Maintain fire, he ordered. Don't let them recover. Captain Lee Taiwan's voice came over the communications channel. Admiral, permission to engage with the fleet. Granted. All ships begin attack run. The human fleet surged forward. They were smaller and slower than the Valari ships, but that no longer mattered. The enemy was in chaos, their formations shattered, their commanders paralyzed by shock. The Jindo led the attack. Navigator Han Soman called out targets, while Captain Taiwan gave orders with machine-like precision. Missile tubes 1 through 20, fire on the lead cruiser. Tubes 21 through 40, target that damaged destroyer on our port side. 200 missiles launched from the Jindo alone. Across the human fleet, thousands more followed. The missiles were not fast by Valari standards, but they did not need to be. The Valari ships were not moving, not evading. Their captains were too stunned to react. The missile struck. Nuclear warheads detonated against Valari hulls, adding fire to the destruction. Electromagnetic pulses scrambled electronics. Fragmentation charges shredded sensor arrays and weapon systems. Torvax finally found his voice. All ships scatter. Break formation. Evasive action. But it was too late for many of them. The Valari had never practiced evasive maneuvers. They had never needed to. Their ships bumped into each other as panicked captains tried to flee in different directions. Some collided directly, their shields designed to stop weapons. Not other ships. Lieutenant Jisoo tracked the battle from the Baekdu. 112 enemy ships destroyed. 130. 147. Dohyun nodded grimly. Keep counting. Dr. Kim Yoonji watched from her station, tears forming in her eyes. Not tears of sadness, tears of vindication. For 20 years, she had been told her weapons were obsolete. For 20 years, she had been laughed at for suggesting that kinetic weapons might still have value in space combat. Now those weapons were saving humanity. Doctor, said one of her assistants, the railgun platforms are running low on ammunition. We have maybe 10 more minutes of sustained fire. Then we better make those 10 minutes count, Yoonji replied. On the burning light, Torvax received damage reports from across his fleet. Half his ships were gone. More than half. The survivors were scattered and confused, their commanders unable to coordinate any kind of response. How is this possible? He whispered. They use rocks, metal, and chemicals. How can this be happening? Kessa appeared at his side, her blue skin pale with shock. Commander, we need to retreat. We cannot fight an enemy whose weapons we cannot stop. Retreat? Torvax turned to face her, his 4 eyes wide with fury. The Valari do not retreat. We have never retreated. Then we will die here. Kessa shouted back. Look at the tactical display. Our shields are useless. Our weapons cannot fire because our targeting systems are being jammed. They are killing us, Commander, and we cannot stop them. For the first time in his long life, Torvax felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Signal the fleet, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Full retreat. All ships, maximum speed, withdraw from the system. The order went out. The surviving Valari ships turned and ran, their plasma engines burning bright as they fled toward the outer planets. But Admiral Doyun was not finished with them yet. Phase 2, he ordered. Activate the Jupiter minefield. Far away, hidden among the moons of Jupiter, thousands of weapons woke from their sleep. They were simple devices, nuclear bombs attached to sensors, programmed to detonate when Valari drive. Signatures came within range. The retreating fleet flew directly into them. More explosions. More dying ships. More Valari screaming in terror as their perfect technology failed to save them from human stubbornness and human ingenuity. Of 400 warships that had entered the virus, solar system, only 63 escaped. The rest were dust and debris, scattered across millions of kilometers of space. Humanity had won its first battle against the stars, but the war was only beginning. The 63 surviving ships of the Valari fleet limped across the darkness between stars. Their golden hulls were scarred and blackened. Their crews were silent with shock. They had entered the human system as conquerors. They were leaving as survivors. High Commander Torvax sat alone in his quarters aboard the Burning Light. His flagship had taken 3 impacts during the battle minor ones. By human standards, but they had torn through compartments and killed dozens of his crew. He stared at the wall, unable to process what had happened. 337 ships destroyed. More than 50,000 Valari dead. The greatest defeat in the history of the Dominion. And it had been done by a species that threw rocks. A communication request flashed on his console. The Dominion Council wanted a report. Torvax ignored it. What could he possibly say? That his perfect fleet had been broken by primitives? That their shields, the shields that had protected the Valari for 10,000 years, were useless against simple metal projectiles? Back on Earth, celebrations erupted across the planet. Cities that had been preparing for destruction instead filled with joy and relief. People hugged strangers in the streets. Prayers of thanks rose from 1,000 temples and churches. But in the command center of Baekdu, there was no celebration. Admiral Park Do-hyun stood before his officers with a grave expression. We won a battle, he said. We did not win a war. The Valari will return. When they do, they will not make the same mistakes. Lieutenant Yoon-jae-soo nodded. Our surprise is gone. They know about our kinetic weapons now. They'll develop countermeasures. How long do we have? Asked Captain Lee Taiwan. He had just arrived from the Jindo, exhausted but alert. Dr. Kim Yoon-ji pulled up projections on the main screen. Based on Valari technology levels and their communication speeds, I estimate they'll need 6 to 12 months to develop and deploy countermeasures. Probably some kind of physical barrier or point defense system to intercept projectiles. 6 months? Do-hyun repeated. We have 6 months to prepare for their return. And they'll bring more ships, Yoon-ji added. Many more. The Dominion has thousands of warships across their territory. What we faced was a small expedition fleet. Next time, they'll send an armada. The weight of her words settled over the room. They had one against 400 ships. What would they do against 4,000? Or 40,000? Do-hyun turned to face his officers. Then we have work to do. Dr. Kim, I want production of Railgun platforms increased tenfold. Lieutenant Yoon, begin analyzing the Valari technology we recovered from destroyed ships. Captain Lee, start training new crews. We need more ships, more people, more everything. Sir, Jisoo said carefully. We used most of our nuclear stockpile in the battle. Many nations are reluctant to produce more. Then convince them. Show them the footage of what the Valari were going to do to our cities. Remind them that the only reason their children are still alive is because of those weapons. Dohan's voice hardened. We cannot afford politics. Not anymore. The months that followed were the busiest in human history. Factories that had built cars now built missiles. Universities that had studied theory now developed weapons. People who had never thought about war suddenly found themselves training for a dot captain. Taiwan oversaw the expansion of the fleet. New ships were constructed at a frantic pace, not elegant vessels, but practical ones. Hulls thick with armor. Weapons bays filled with railguns and missile tubes. No luxury, no comfort, just the tools needed to survive. These ships are ugly, one young officer complained during an inspection. Taiwan looked at him coldly. They're not meant to be beautiful. They're meant to kill Valari. Do you think the enemy will care how pretty our ships are when we're shooting holes through their fleet? The officer had no answer. Dr. Yoonji led the effort to understand Valari technology. Pieces of destroyed ships had been recovered and brought to Earth for study. What they found was both impressive and disappointing. Their plasma weapons are remarkable, Yoonji explained to the Defense Council. Far more powerful than anything we could build. But they're also complex and delicate. A single kinetic impact to the main generator can cause a cascade failure that destroys the entire ship. So they're strong but fragile, Do-hyun observed. Exactly. Their technology evolved without competition. They never needed to make their systems robust because no one ever damaged them. That's their weakness. They've never learned to take a punch. Lieutenant Jisoo worked with intelligence teams to analyze Valari communications. They had captured some transmissions during the battle, and the information was troubling. The Dominion is furious, she reported. They're calling what happened an embarrassment. Some commanders are being punished for the defeat, even though it wasn't really their fault. She paused. But the really concerning part is this. They're already building new ships. Thousands of them. And they're modifying them. Modifying how? Do-hyun asked. Point defense systems. Automated guns designed to track and destroy incoming projectiles. They're also spreading their formations wider to reduce the effectiveness of our attacks. Jisoo looked up from her report. They're learning, Admiral. Fast. Navigator Han Soman had become something of a hero after the battle. Her quick targeting calculations had helped the Jindo destroy 17 enemy ships. Now she trained new navigators, passing on what she had learned. Speed is everything, she told her students. The Valari are faster than us, but they're not used to reacting quickly. Their battles have always been predictable energy weapons, exchanged at safe distances. Shields holding until someone's power runs out. We changed the rules. We made the battlefield chaotic. That's our advantage. A young trainee raised her hand. But if they adapt, if they learn to fight the way we fight, won't we lose that advantage? Somin smiled grimly. Then we'll have to adapt faster. That's what humans do. We're not the strongest or the most advanced, but we're stubborn. We keep trying new things until something works. The Valari have been doing the same thing for 10,000 years. We've been changing every decade. That flexibility might be our greatest weapon. 6 months after the battle, long-range sensors detected a massive energy signature at the edge of the solar system. Do-hyun was in his quarters when the alert came. He reached the command center in minutes, his uniform hastily fastened. Report, he demanded. Jisoo's face was pale. Contact confirmed, Admiral. Valari fleet. And it's... She swallowed. It's big. The tactical display lit up with red dots. More and more of them, pouring into the system like a river of fire. Count? Do-hyun asked quietly. 2,000 ships confirmed. More arriving every minute. Jisoo's voice shook slightly. This isn't an expedition force. This is their main battle fleet. Captain Taiwan arrived, breathing hard from running. Admiral, the fleet is ready. All 93 ships are at battle stations. 93 ships against 2,000. The mathematics were terrible, but Do-hyun did not flinch. He had known this was coming. He had prepared for this moment. Signal all platforms, he ordered. Arm all weapons. Launch all defensive satellites. He looked around at his officers, men and women, who had chosen to stand against impossible odds. We knew they would come back. We knew they would bring more ships. This changes nothing. Admiral, Yoonji said softly, we can't win this the same way we won before. They've adapted. They have point defenses now. I know. Do-hyun's eyes were fixed on the tactical display. That's why we're not going to fight the same way. We've had 6 months to prepare. And we've learned some new tricks. He turned to face his fleet. Activate Project Stonewall. Across the solar system, new weapons came online. These were not the simple railgun platforms of the first battle. These were something else entirely, something that Dr. Yoonji and her team had spent 6 months building. The Valari wanted a war. Humanity was going to give them one they would never forget. The second battle for Earth lasted 3 days. The Valari came with 2,000 ships. Their new point defense systems tracking and destroying the railgun projectiles that had devastated them before. They came with wider formations, making it harder for single shots to hit multiple targets. They came with fury and the determination to wipe humanity from existence. But humanity had not been idle. Project Stonewall was not a single weapon. It was a new way of fighting. Instead of simple tungsten rods, Earth's railgun platforms now fired clouds of metal fragments, thousands of small pieces, spreading across huge areas of space. The point defense systems could not track them all. For every 100 fragments they destroyed, 10 got through. And 10 was enough. Dr. Kim Yoonji had also developed something new. Nuclear-pumped lasers. Simple bombs that, in the moment of detonation, focused their energy into beams of pure destruction. They were one-use weapons, disposing of themselves in the act of firing. But they were cheap to build, easy to hide, and devastating against Valari shields that had never been designed to stop focused radiation. The Valari lost 300 ships on the first day. High Commander Torvax, commanding from a new flagship, watched his fleet crumble for the second time. But he had learned from the first battle. He pulled his forces back, regrouped, and changed his tactics. All ships, target their weapons platforms, he ordered. Ignore the fleet. Destroy the sources of their attacks. It was a sound strategy. The Valari ships swept across the solar system, hunting for the hidden railgun platforms and destroying them one by one. Their plasma weapons were still more powerful than anything humanity had. In a direct confrontation, they would win. But Admiral Park Do-hyun had expected this. Phase 2, he ordered. Launch the swarm. 10,000 small drones emerged from hiding places throughout the system. Each one was barely larger than a car, equipped with a single missile and a simple computer brain. They were not sophisticated. They were not elegant. They were cheap, fast, and numerous. The Valari had to choose. Continue hunting platforms while drones attacked them from all sides, or turn their weapons on the swarm and let the platforms keep firing. Either choice cost them ships. On the second day, Captain Lee Taiwan led the human fleet in a direct assault on the Valari rearguard. His ships were outnumbered 20 to 1, but they hit hard and fast. launching every missile they had before retreating behind a defensive screen of platforms and drones. All weapons fired, Navigator Hans Soman reported. Missile bays are empty. Then we reload and do it again, Taiwan replied. The Jindo survived 37 separate engagements over those 3 days. Her hull was scarred with plasma burns and impact craters. Half her crew was dead. But she kept fighting, kept launching, kept killing Valari ships one by one. On the 3rd day, the Valari broke. Torvax received reports that his fleet had lost over 800 ships. The humans had lost many of their platforms and half their fleet, but they were still fighting, still adapting, still refusing to surrender. This is insane, Kessa told him. They should have given up by now. They have no hope of winning. They don't care about winning, Torvax realized. His voice was hollow. They only care about making us pay. Every ship we lose, every soldier who dies, they consider it a victory. They're not trying to defeat us. They're trying to make conquest too expensive to attempt. He stared at the tactical display for a long moment. Signal the fleet. We're withdrawing. Withdrawing. Kessa was shocked. But we still outnumber them. And if we stay, they will kill more of us. And more, and more. Torvax's 4 eyes were tired and old. The Council sent us here to conquer a primitive species. Instead, we have lost over 1,000 ships fighting creatures who should not have been able to harm us. How many more ships do you want to sacrifice? The Valari fleet retreated. Again, this time, they did not return. 3 months later, a different ship entered Earth's solar system. It came slowly, broadcasting peaceful signals on all frequencies. Its design was unfamiliar, neither human nor Valari. Admiral Do-hyun met the alien delegation aboard the Baekdu. The station had been repaired after the battle, though scars still marked its hull. He stood with Lieutenant Jisoo and Dr. Yoonji, facing creatures unlike any they had seen. The Kovathi were tall and silver-skinned, with large dark eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Their leader, Ambassador Vila, spoke through a translation device. "We have watched your battles with the Valari," she said. "The galaxy has watched. What you have done is unprecedented." "We defended our home," Do-hyun replied simply. "Anyone would do the same." "No." Vala shook her head, a gesture she had learned from human broadcasts. "No, Admiral. Not anyone. The Valari have conquered hundreds of species. None have fought back successfully. None have won. We lost many people. Many ships. I wouldn't call it winning. The Valari retreated. Twice. They've already announced that Earth is too costly to conquer." Vala's dark eyes studied him. "In 10,000 years of Valari expansion, this has never happened before. You have changed the galaxy." Lieutenant Jisoo spoke up. "Changed it how?" "The Valari rule through fear. They convince species that resistance is pointless, that their technology cannot be overcome. You have proven that this is false. Already, other conquered worlds are asking questions. If the humans could resist, why can't we? If primitive weapons can damage Valari ships, what might our own weapons do?" She paused, letting her words sink in. "The Valari are afraid, Admiral. Not of your weapons. Those can be countered, given time. They are afraid of what you represent. The idea that power can be challenged, that the strong can be defeated by the clever and the determined." Dr. Yoonji frowned. "If they're afraid, won't they come back with an even larger force? Try to destroy us completely? Perhaps. But doing so would require pulling ships from other regions, weakening their control over conquered systems. The rebellion you have inspired is already beginning. Small resistance movements. Acts of sabotage. The Valari cannot fight everyone at once." Captain Taiwan had joined them quietly, his uniform still showing the marks of battle. So what now? We just wait to see if they come back. Now, said Vela, you prepare. You build. You grow stronger. And you accept that you are no longer alone. She produced a small device and activated it. A star map appeared in the air between them, showing dozens of marked systems. These are worlds that wish to establish contact with humanity. Some are conquered peoples hoping for liberation. Others are free species who see in you a potential ally against the Dominion. All of them want to talk. Dahin stared at the map. So many stars. So many possibilities. Why? He asked. Why do they care about us? We're still primitive by galactic standards. We don't have plasma weapons or faster-than-light travel. Vela smiled, another expression she had learned from humans. The Valari conquered through superior power. They were simply better than everyone else. But you? She gestured at the battle scars on the station walls, at the tired officers in their worn uniforms. You were worse, weaker, less advanced. And you won anyway. She leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. Superior power can be matched. Given enough time, anyone can build bigger ships and stronger weapons. But what you have cannot be copied. The stubbornness, the creativity, the refusal to accept defeat, even when defeat is certain. These are not technologies that can be stolen or developed. They are part of who you are. Admiral Park Do-hyun looked at his officers. Jisoo, brilliant and precise. Yoonji, whose weapons had saved them all. Taiwan, steady as stone in the worst moments. They had started this war as underdogs, and they had ended it as something else entirely. Not conquerors. Not rulers. Survivors. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years, Dahin said quietly. Wars over land, over resources, over ideas. We've always found ways to keep going, to adapt, to win ugly when we had to. He turned back to the ambassador. The Valari thought they were teaching us about war. But we've been studying war since we climbed down from the trees. We know things about conflict that they've never had to learn. He straightened his shoulders, standing tall despite his exhaustion. Tell your friends we're ready to talk. Tell them humanity is open for allies. But also tell them this. We didn't beat the Valari by being nice. We beat them by being more stubborn, more ruthless, and more creative than they were. Anyone who thinks they can push us around will learn the same lesson. Outside the viewports of Baekdu, Earth turned slowly in the sunlight. The planet was scarred from the war cities damaged, people dead, economies shattered. But it was still there, still alive, still human. The galaxy had laughed at human weapons. The galaxy had learned better. And in shipyards around the world, new vessels were being built. Ships that combined the simplicity of kinetic weapons with the power of captured Valari technology. Ships crewed by people who had looked extinction in the face and refused to blink. The war was over. But humanity's story among the stars was only beginning.